Just when I think the mainstream media cannot get any dumber, just when I think I have seen and heard all of the ignorant ideas these people can come up with, the New York Times publishes an article this week that removes all doubt. These people are completely clueless. Yesterday morning, we talked about the decline of Major League Baseball. It is a topic that we have discussed many times here on the channel. And it's not just professional baseball that's in decline. The sport of baseball is in decline. When I was playing Little League ball, the park would be packed on Saturdays. It was a community event. People living in the suburbs, they all came together on Saturday during the spring to watch the kids play baseball. Participation in Little League Baseball has declined 50% since I was growing up. The World Series. The World Series used to draw between 25, 30 million viewers. Since 2000, the World Series has eclipsed 20 million viewers just 4 times. When we talked about the problems in Major League Baseball yesterday, I offered a couple of solutions. Some of you in the comment section offered solutions. When you're faced with a problem at work, let's say you're a business owner. Let me think for a second. Let's say you own a trucking company. That's an industry that's facing major problems right now. You own a trucking company. You're responsible for hauling freight across the country. You have major problems right now. High fuel cost, trouble finding reliable employees. On the most recent episode of John Oliver, he talked about the myriad of problems facing the trucking industry. It was an excellent episode. I encourage you to go check it out after you're done watching this video. But as the owner of the company, you're facing all these problems. At any point, do you think to yourself, I know the solution to all of our problems. Let's beg the government to take over. We should nationalize the trucking industry. That will solve all of our problems. Would that fucking thought ever cross your mind? I don't know about you guys, but when I see problems in business, the government is always my first solution. Politicians, they are so great at solving problems. Look at how well they fix the healthcare system. Healthcare in America, it used to be cheap. My dad's told me before companies used to cover 100% of your premiums because the coverage was so cheap and it was good coverage. Now, of course, healthcare costs started to increase. Prescription medication in some cases became prohibitively expensive. So the government stepped in to save the healthcare system. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Yeah, that was partially true. You can damn sure keep your doctor if you're willing to pay out the ass for it. Obamacare was passed, I believe 2010, maybe 2011. Either way, Obamacare was passed. And what happened? The price for health insurance increased dramatically. Back in the early 80s, my dad paid $5,000 for a bachelor's degree. Not $5,000 per semester, not $5,000 per year. $5,000 covered all 4 years of college, books included. Why is college tuition so expensive today? What happened to make the cost dramatically increase? The fucking politicians came up with this brilliant idea. Every American has the right to attend college. The feds, they start backing student loans. Banks, they began loaning money to 18-year-old kids who had absolutely no business borrowing that kind of money. If the feds were not backing student loans, do you think there is a bank in the country that's loaning an 18-year-old kid $200,000? Fuck no. With loans federally backed, college tuition began to gradually rise. After all, the banks have no risk involved. Universities, many of which are state-run, they began taking advantage of the youth. Now you too can graduate from college and enter the world at 22 years old with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Every time the government steps into the private sector to solve a problem, they make matters worse. So imagine my surprise when the New York Times published an article suggesting that we should nationalize Major League Baseball. For my social justice warriors out there who struggle with reading comprehension and big words, nationalize means the government would take over Major League Baseball. You should already know what this means since your fucking movement is trying to nationalize everything. The article was written by Matthew Walter. Now you're probably wondering, who in the fuck is that? I was wondering the same thing, so I looked him up. Here is Matthew Walter. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Someone promoting the nationalization of baseball looks like he just walked out of the 1960s. This dude has a face that screams, I'm a virgin. And what's with the fucking cigarette? I don't know anyone who smokes cigarettes anymore. It's 2022, dude. Go get yourself a vape pen. That way, the only stench coming from your nasty ass is body odor and not cigarette smoke. Maddie's article, it was given a ringing endorsement by Chris Hayes, another lifelong virgin who hosts a show that no one watches on MSNBC. Maddie claims it is inevitable. The government will be forced to step in and take over Major League Baseball. If the league is left in the private sector, it will eventually disappear, and that just can't happen to America's pastime. Number one, even though it's struggling, Major League Baseball is nowhere near extinction. But two, even if they were, why do we need the government to step in and save it? You think if the government takes over, ratings for Major League Baseball will just magically increase? That's your solution to the problem in baseball? Government intervention? Can you imagine the team names? Biden's Bombers, the Tampa Trannies, the Detroit Dumbasses. You want to ensure the future of Major League Baseball lies in the cemetery? Have the federal government take it over. Matter of fact, there has already been government intervention in baseball. I would imagine that most of you did not know this. I didn't know it until I was researching this story. Back in 2018, Congress passed the Save America's Pastime Act. Oh, what a catchy name. This legislation was introduced due to pressure from Major League Baseball and team owners. You see, minor league baseball players, they were tired of being paid pennies for working 80 hours a week. Some minor leaguers were making $1,100 every month. They're required to be on the road every week, games every night. They can't hold other jobs to supplement their income. They were pushing for overtime pay, but the Save America's Pastime Act, it was introduced to hammer the nail in that coffin. It was actually originally introduced back in 2016, but it was met with so much public backlash, Congress gave people 2 years to forget about it. Then they snuck it into a 2,300-page spending bill. The bill, the Save America's Pastime Act, it was quietly tucked away on page 1967 so no one would notice. Congress, Major League Baseball, they sold this legislation as a way to save minor league baseball. We must save these teams located in small towns that depend on them. Of course, that was all bullshit. 7 months after the bill was passed, Major League Baseball started leaking minor league teams that would be shutting down. Fast forward to December 2020, 40 of the 160 minor league teams that the bill was supposed to save were shut down. You see what happens when government steps in to save the day? Guess what will also happen if Major League Baseball is nationalized? Player salaries will decrease dramatically. What would end up happening? Player salaries would be uniform across the board. All players would be paid the same. But KC, wouldn't ticket prices decrease as well? Well, hell yeah, they would. Part of the reason ticket prices would be so cheap, no one would be willing to pay to go watch that garbage. Baseball is already struggling to recruit elite athletes. Most of your elite athletes in this country, they have dreams of playing in the NFL or the NBA. Once you give players no incentive to be elite because you've slashed their salaries, you are not going to attract them any longer. Maddie, the devout social justice warrior that he is, he also wants the government to continue funding new stadiums. It gives the local government incentive to keep teams in their local market. Well, yeah, that's partially true. This is another example of the mainstream media giving you a partial truth. You know what the problem is when the government subsidizes stadiums for teams? Team owners start acting like tenants instead of owners. If you're a renter, say you're renting an apartment or a house, what do you do every time your lease comes up for renewal? You start looking for cheaper rent elsewhere. Also, do you take better care of a house that you own or a house that you're renting? The exact opposite of Maddie's point is true. If you quit subsidizing team owners and have them build their own stadium, that gives them incentive to stay in town. You think the Giants are leaving San Francisco after they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to build their field over 20 years ago? You think the Chargers and the Rams are going to leave Los Angeles anytime soon after they spent hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars building SoFi Stadium? If we're going to nationalize Major League Baseball, what league is next? The government is bailing out the men. In the name of equity, they must help out the women too. The NWSL, I should say, is a money pit. Perhaps they should be nationalized too. The WNBA loses over $10 million every year. Let's have the government solve their problems. The NHL, they struggle to draw an audience. Nationalization. Let me ask you this. What about the NBA? One of Maddie's reasons to nationalize baseball was they only average 1.5 million viewers on ESPN for Sunday Night Baseball. The NBA, they average about the same number on ESPN. Should they be nationalized too? Where does it end? Where does it end? The next thing you know, every fucking league besides the NFL will be government owned. And they would make a strong case for the NFL too, because they're racist. We will take over and ensure half of head coaching positions are filled by minority coaches. This right here, this is the true agenda. This is what social justice, woke movement, whatever the fuck you want to call it, this is what it's all about. The government controlling everything. You look at the history of mankind, this idea, this system, always fails. Go ask the people of Cuba, Venezuela. Go ask them how social justice works out. If you like living in a straw hut where the roof falls off your house every time the wind blows, go live in Venezuela. But leave the rest of us alone. We're doing just fine on our own. We don't need the fucking government. Well, let me know what you think. The New York Times suggesting that the federal government should take over Major League Baseball. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.